Hi everyone, and welcome back to Leah Binges, because my name is Leah and I like to binge watch a lot of movies and TV shows. And today I want to talk about the show Veronica Mars on Hulu. And I will say that when I originally scripted this and wrote all my notes out and all my thoughts out, I had just finished the show last night, so that it was my most recent, most accurate thoughts. However, that was a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months. So it's been a little while, so bear with me while I actually get my thoughts together, and hopefully I still remember what I was gonna say properly. My overall thoughts for the show is fuck Hulu and fuck Rob Thomas. When I catch them, they are done for, I swear to God. Because killing off a fan favorite, especially after they are the ones who kept the show alive for a revival, is terrible writing and does nothing for the show, genuinely absolutely nothing. It just created unneeded drama and tension, and it didn't even create a cliffhanger. Terrible writing. I will admit that I did not like the end of season 3 because it left a bunch of things unanswered. There were a lot of plot holes and loose ends. So I didn't think that season 3 was a good place to leave things. So I did like that they revived the show to give the audience answers. However, it also should have ended in season 3. It most definitely should have ended in season 3, because how dare you revive a show and then tear it to shreds, basically. Basically revive a show just to gut it and to basically spit in the audience faces. I did like the movie. I'm not really going to be talking about it that much. It's mainly going to be the show. But when it was revived for the movie, things were not good even in the movie, but at the same time, I did like it. It was fine. But then after the movie, same thing, just should have let it go, should have let it die. It should have ended there. Stop reviving shows that you don't know what to do with in a revival. This is a bigger argument that I've talked about a lot on my channel already, that sometimes it's better to just let shows die. Sometimes it's better to just let a show fade out, so that it doesn't get to the point where you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what you're writing and you're just throwing things out there and hoping that they stick. Logan, for example, which is the fan favorite that they killed off. Obviously spoilers, but why are you watching these videos if you don't want spoilers? But so they finally in the final season of the show gave Logan character development. He had so much trauma throughout the entire original series, and then finally in this new season they gave him character development. And then after they did that, he was happy with his life and he had his life together and he just was finally in a good place, and then they just kill him off. How dare you? That's all I really have to say about that. Moving on from that little rant now, I'm going to go into a little bit more depth about each of the characters and their storylines and why I like them or dislike them. Just kind of break down the show a little bit more and hopefully be a little bit more organized than me just sitting in front of the camera ranting for 20 minutes. And first up is Weevil. And Weevil is actually one of my favorites in the entire show. I firmly believe that he deserved more screen time than what he got. He was sort of the bad boy with the heart of gold, because he was the leader of this biker gang. And so when he's introduced, you're kind of led to fear him. But then I got very attached to him very quickly. This is no surprise to me, because I do typically get attached to the bad boy kind of archetype, and especially the bad boy with a heart of gold. Sorry, guilty. Count one, guilty. And so he was one of my favorites. I absolutely loved the soft spot that he had for Veronica and their relationship, and how he would always help her out and protect her. Not in a romantic way or anything, it was purely platonic, but I really liked that dynamic. And it was always with her that he was always able to show he had a soft spot and that he was more than what everyone kind of thought he was. Even with his introduction in season 1, I knew I was gonna love him because of the fact that they instantly showed this kind of budding friendship with him and Veronica. And overall, he deserved so much better. They were always wrongfully accusing him and stereotyping him because he was the leader of this biker gang. Anytime anything was wrong. They're like, oh, obviously Weevil is the one who did it. Which sometimes they were right. I'm not gonna lie. Like the episode where they were trying to figure out who stole the money, and then at the end of it, they discovered that Weevil was the one who stole the money. So sometimes it was justified, but sometimes it wasn't. Like, especially how his grandma didn't even get to see him graduate like she wanted to. That was just kind of heartbreaking for me. And it was purely just because the cops decided to come into his graduation and like arrest him right then and there. Unnecessary. You could have let him graduate and let his grandma see him graduate before dragging him out in handcuffs. That was so rude. And I also really loved his character development in season 3, like how he really wanted to get out of crime, but he was definitely struggling. Like he had this internal struggle of, things were so much like easier kind of when I was in the gang, but then also he did want so badly to be out of that life. But then comes season 4, and season 4 genuinely destroyed all of his character development. They sent him back into the biker gang. He betrayed Veronica and he betrayed Keith. And like, these are all very out of character. They had set up this very strong friendship between Veronica and Weevil and kind of helped her be this force of good and light in his life that helped pull him out of crime. And then they just threw him right back in and had him betray her. Like, that was so out of character for him. He would not have betrayed her. And I will stick by that. Why did they do that to his character? I do not know, but I don't think I'll ever not be mad about it, because why? And they never really gave a good reason either. They just were like, oh, he's back there. Like, sometimes, I think there was like a quote in the final season where he's like, oh, sometimes like things just happen. But like in the movie, they showed him out of the biker gang and living his life and like married with a kid, I think. And then in season 4, they just completely ignored that and just threw him right back in. Rude. Not to mention, season 4 was just such inconsistent character writing, because he spent all of season 2 trying to take down the Fitzpatricks because he didn't like how the biker gang was being manipulated and used for outside like crime and drug dealing and things like that. And yet we're supposed to believe as the audience that he allowed the gang to then be manipulated in season 4. Like, it was the same thing that was happening in season 2, but in season 2 he wasn't allowing it. And then in season 4, apparently he just accepted it. Yeah, sure. That's right. That's definitely believable for his character. Not. They just kind of, like, he was my favorite for such a long time. And then they just kind of threw out his character development. And that made me so mad. My complaints with, like, the movie and season 4 do not just stop with them killing Logan. It's everything. I don't know why they brought this show back. Anyway, next up is Mac. She was also one of my favorites and also deserved more screen time in my opinion. She wasn't in season 4 and I really missed her. She was kind of like a void in the show that we were missing her and missing her dynamic in the group and missing her relationship with Veronica and all that. So she deserved more screen time. I did appreciate that they let her do more in season 3 after the way she became like a pawn in season 2, because in season 2 she was just kind of there. Like, yes, she was helping Veronica, but she was also being used by the guy that I don't remember his name now. We'll look that up later. She was just kind of being used as a cover by the villain of season 2. So then come season 3, I was really, really glad that they let her do more and be a bigger part of the show, and then they just dropped her in season 4. So mad about that. I will say though that they completely dropped her like switched at birth storyline. It was very critical in that one episode, but then never mentioned it again. And that was really weird because it was kind of what got her connected to Veronica, because Veronica was helping her figure that out. In the episode, they very clearly showed that she really, really wanted to get to know her birth mother and her sister because she never felt truly accepted with her, I don't want to say adopted family, with her switched family, I guess. I don't know what to call them. But like, she never really felt at peace or like she was in the right place. So then they finally gave her the opportunity to get those answers and then immediately dropped it right after that one episode. So I don't really totally know what that was about, Probably just poor writing, honestly, which is going to be a common theme in this episode, in this video. Moving on, next up is Wallace. I feel like I don't really have a whole lot to say about a lot of these other characters. Overall, for Wallace, I did really like him and his friendship with Veronica. I loved the trope of him not knowing what was going on most of the time, but also not wanting to know, and he would just like help her anyways. She would ask him for a favor and he'd be like, oh yeah, I'll do that. But then he'd have this moment where he's like, wait, why am I doing that? But then he's like, do I want to know? No, actually, I don't think I do want to know. I'll just do it. I'll just help you out. He also needed more screen time. I felt like he was very much a side character that they tended to forget about, which I understand that the show is called Veronica Mars. Like, I feel like I'm saying that about every character, is that they deserved more screen time. And I understand that the show is called Veronica Mars, so she's the main character. But they just had so many other really good characters that I would have liked to see more of. That's just my own personal opinion. And I will also say that Wallace had one of the worst cases of forgotten storylines, because he had been written off the show to go live with his dad in Chicago. But then after he came back, where did his mom go? Where did his dad go? Did they just forget that he wanted a relationship with his dad? Because that was the whole point for him leaving, was to get a relationship with his dad. But then he came back from Chicago and we never heard about his dad again. Make it make sense, because it doesn't make sense. Like, his entire family just got dropped. Again, do not know what that was about. And I'll say it again, probably just poor writing. And like, that's a shame, because I really loved the storylines and the characters and all that. But at the same time, why did they have such poor writing for a lot of the show? Anyways, I'm gonna try and not spiral in this video. Next up is Meg, and I don't really have a whole lot to say about Meg. I did really, really like her character when she was first introduced, and her relationship with Veronica was great. But again, missed opportunities, because they could have done a lot with her, but then they kind of ruined her character later. Missed potential, because then they just like killed her off unnecessarily. I think they just didn't really know what to do with the character anymore. So they're like, oh, I guess we'll just kill her off. But also, why did they have to ruin her character by making her like super jealous and like kind of mean to Veronica, when Veronica didn't really deserve that, if I remember correctly? So yeah, she was like really great for like 2 episodes, and then they ruined her character and then killed her off. I wish we had her for longer. Next up is Parker, and I liked and also didn't like Parker. I really did like her, but again, it just felt like they did not write her to her full potential, because she felt a little bit like a replacement for Meg, which was a little disappointing. They kind of used the same story arc as they did with Meg. For Meg was interested in Duncan. That's who Veronica was dating at the, like, Veronica and Meg were both interested in Duncan, and then with Parker and Veronica were also both interested in Logan. It just was there kind of to create unnecessary drama, I feel like, and also ended with Parker blaming Veronica, similar to how Meg blamed Veronica for Duncan breaking up with her. So it was almost the exact same story arc, and just seemed to kind of play into the stereotype of like the catty mean girl mentality and fighting over boys and things like that. I know the show was made in like the early 2000s. It was just like the society at the time. But at the same time, I'm watching it now in 2025 and it just does not hold up, because why do we have to be doing shit like that? I don't know. It just was like catty. Anyway, so I did really like her, and they could have done so much with her character, but instead they just used the exact same storyline. Again, with the poor writing, I'm sorry. Moving right along, we have Logan. What do I say about Logan? Okay. In seasons 1 through 3, Logan in seasons 1 through 3 versus Logan in the movie, and then Logan in season 4 are 2 very, very different people, in my opinion. I can admit it, I'm a Logan and Veronica shipper, even though they were quite toxic in the earlier seasons. It felt a little bit like they were afraid to give Logan some character development, because why is season 3 Logan making these same exact mistakes, if not more mistakes, than season 1 Logan? Why are we regressing as a character? Also, why the hell did they have them get together at the end of season 1, only for season 2 to start up with a flash forward, and they had broken up? It makes no sense. It makes no sense, genuinely. We had such a good build-up in season 1, and then season 2 comes, and they're just broken up again. I kind of feel like it was because they just wanted to redo the build-up, and that's lazy writing in my opinion. I'm sorry. It's kind of similar to like Chenford in The Rookie, which I'm going to try and knock it off topic and rant about them for a little bit, but they kind of did the same thing where they just broke them up unnecessarily because they wanted to do the build-up again. Weird. Weird, weird, weird. However, Logan also is kind of the sort of bad boy with a heart of gold, similar to Weevil. He also like very much plays into the feels worthless and undeserving trope, which I will eat up every time. I am a sucker for the trope of like feels worthless. I will eat that shit up. And I'm also a sucker for the guy will do anything for a girl trope, and that's also Logan. So they're really playing into all of the tropes that I will eat up every single time. And any show with those types of tropes, I'm gonna enjoy it every single time. Doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. I don't care. I love it. I'd really be sitting there giggling, kicking my feet every time we saw that. He also kind of reminded me of Ryan Atwood on The OC, which is another one of like my favorite characters. I'm also kind of a sucker for him because again, that like tortured and feels worthless and undeserving kind of trope. Perfect. Chef's kiss. Gonna eat it up. Some examples of this that like really, I could rewatch these scenes like 24/7 and not get tired of them. When Logan saves Veronica from the federal agent, when Logan saves Veronica from the bar with the gun, and he has that quote where he's like, I've had a really bad year, shows he has nothing to lose except for her. And he's like, try me. Love it, love it, love it, love it. When Logan smashes the police car purely to get arrested and have a chance to beat up Veronica's attackers. You're joking. You're joking. I can't. Why do I look psychotic like that? I got off topic. I'm sorry. But I loved it. I loved it. Logan beating up Piz and the other guy in the cafeteria, which, hear me out. I know this wasn't great for his character development and it ended up hurting his relationship with Veronica, but I feel like Veronica also needed to give him a little bit more grace considering the history. I mean, his dad literally had sex with his girlfriend and filmed it, which then led to his dad killing his girlfriend, plus his knowledge of Veronica's assault. Like, of course he was gonna lose his mind when he discovered that his and Veronica's like sexual encounters had been videotaped and distributed. Let's consider the trauma here. Let's consider the background information. Give the boy a little bit of a break. Why are you so mad at him when he literally was just trying to protect you and thought he was doing the right thing? Anyway, moving on. But then so come season 4, he really did grow as a person. Like I said, obviously, season 3, he was still doing things that was a result of things that he hadn't healed from. And so season 4, they did fix that because they had multiple references to all the therapy that Logan went through, meaning that he truly grew as a person and healed from all the trauma of his younger years, which is why he was ready to like have a fully committed relationship with Veronica with no issues. Like I said, in seasons 1 through 3, they could be a little bit toxic at times, but I also I understand kind of why they were so toxic. But then come season 4, they totally fixed that kind of with the amount of work that they alluded to that Logan had done to help heal and be ready for that committed relationship so that we weren't dealing with that on again, off again, back and forth anymore, which I was just so happy to see. They didn't have to go and fucking ruin it by killing Logan. Did you now, Hulu? And Rob Thomas. Did you? I got my eye on you guys. I do. I know I sound crazy, but like watching this, I knew I got it spoiled for me ahead of time actually because I can't help myself. And I was like reading things online and saw it before it happened. But then I was in denial until it actually happened. I'm still kind of living in denial, if I'm being honest. Moving on, because I don't want to think about Logan's death anymore. I don't want to do it. He was such a good character, and they did him so dirty. Moving on, so I don't get mad, is Duncan. And Duncan was kind of useless, honestly. Like, I liked the tension between him and Veronica in season 1, but I absolutely hated when they got back together in season 2. They just didn't do it for me. There was almost no development, and they just didn't do it for me. And then again, with the missed potential, they had the opportunity to dive deeper into mental health, considering they had like dropped those hints about him having like blackouts and anger issues and things like that. But then they only kind of used it as a reason to call him crazy and accuse him of murder. So he was like demonized for his mental health when they could have given him a lot more. Like, they could have given him more agency for his character, like how he went off his meds earlier in season 1, but then he went back on them. And then they kind of forgot about that storyline. Similar to like the catty mean girl mentality. I know this was written in the early 2000s, and that was kind of the stereotype for the early 2000s. And it still kind of is, that people just use it as a cop-out. They're like, oh, just mental health. That's why they're doing all these things. It's just like mental... I don't like it. It's lazy writing. It's so lazy. But yeah, they really just used it as a reason to accuse him of murder, and then they used it again later on to like justify his actions again. Don't get me started. Duncan, not only was it lazy writing in the beginning, then he fell victim to the forgotten storyline issue. I know they wrote him off pretty well because he was on the run and like had legally kidnapped Meg's baby because it was also his baby, and so he was on the run with the baby. So it was a good way to write him off, but like the Kane family were the main focus in season 1, and then they were almost never mentioned again, which was weird. I know that both the kids died, so they didn't really know what to do with them. They totally forgot that they were the main focus of season 1 come season 2. They're like, oh, actually, never mind. I kind of wish sometime in like season 3 or season 4, they had at least mentioned Duncan or the Kane family. I think that would have been really nice. Okay, I know they did have that one episode where Mr. Kane was mentioned. So that's not entirely accurate. I guess another episode where Duncan specifically was mentioned. Like, does he have a good life now? We don't know. Did he like establish a life with the baby? How's the baby doing? We don't know as an audience, because they just said, oh, he's gone. Never mind, you don't get to know. I'm looking at you, Hulu. I know that Hulu didn't write the first couple seasons, but you know, it's just an expression, okay? Let me be. Oh, that's the police guy. Next up is Leo, and Leo is played by Max Greenfield. I say that just because looking at him, I could only see Schmidt. And Leo's like this deputy guy that Veronica had a fling with here and there. And I really liked him as a match with Veronica. I loved how they kept bringing him back again and again as a recurring character. But I would have loved to see him as more like a series regular, personally. Again, I say this with almost every character, but you write such good side characters and then give them almost no screen time. Doesn't make any sense to me. I know his original situation was a little weird considering the age difference. He was like 20 and Veronica was 17, I think, in season 1 when they first were like flirting with the idea of getting together. I know it's not a super big age difference, but it's still kind of weird considering their stages of life. Like, he's established as a deputy and she's still in high school. Okay, Hulu. Okay. But also, it was kind of like, I have this issue with a lot of shows that introduce slightly weird age gaps, is that half the time the actors will not be that different in age. And when I'm watching this show, I kind of forget that one of the characters is in high school because realistically, they'll be like 25 playing a 17-year-old. I had to like physically remind myself like, oh, we possibly shouldn't be rooting for them considering the age difference. And they did address that in season 4 though. they kind of course corrected. So I was glad about that. I was glad that they course corrected. I don't remember exactly what he said, but like, I remember they had a reunion in season 4, and I think Leo or Veronica, one of them had made a comment about like, oh yeah, but I was still in high school, blah, blah, blah. It wouldn't have worked, something like that. I don't remember exactly. And my last point about Leo is that he, again, I feel like I also say this about every single character, was a little bit of a forgotten storyline as well. We last saw him when he was being fired from the sheriff's office because he had like tampered with evidence. But then the next we see him, he's in the FBI. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I know Keith had rehired him, but then Keith didn't get reelected. So did he stay deputy when Keith wasn't reelected, and then that led to him getting into the FBI? Unanswered questions. That would have been nice to know. We don't get to know, though. That's just how it is, apparently. Okay, moving on, because I can't keep going in circles. Next up is Troy. That's who Troy is. Okay, next up is Troy, and I liked him. He was like Veronica's very short love interest in season 1, I think. And I did really, really like him when he was introduced, but then he turned out to be a douchebag, and I felt very betrayed by that, but then Veronica took care of him, so good riddance. I don't really have a whole lot to say about him because he was very briefly in the show and didn't do a whole lot. I did feel betrayed when he turned out to be a dick, but but at the same time, then nothing else really happened, so it doesn't really matter. I only really included him in this because I was discussing all of Veronica's relationships, but so now that's done, so I don't need to talk about him anymore. Next up is Piz, and again, he's one of Veronica's love interests in season 3. And I feel really bad because he's genuinely a good guy and like a really nice guy. Like, I hated watching him get shot. I don't remember that happening. Like, I hate watching him get shot, but ultimately, him as a character, he's just not that interesting. Like, he's a nice guy, but you're rooting for the chemistry between Veronica and Logan for most of this time, so you don't really root for him that much, and I'm sorry to Piz for that. They should have given him a good match instead of forcing him with Veronica. Like, him and Parker, if written properly, could have been a really good match. Then we wouldn't need that weird catty drama between Parker and Veronica. Veronica could be with Logan, and Piz could actually have some good writing with Parker. But we didn't do that. We just let them all be convoluted and have them be with weird and not good matches. And that's part of my problem. Piz never stood a chance. I'm sorry. He was a really good guy, but he never stood a chance to stay with Veronica. They had almost no chemistry. They had nothing in common, and they were not a match that you were rooting for. Like, you couldn't see it. Like, they just seemed like friends. Last but certainly not least is Keith, who is Veronica's dad, of course. And I don't really have much to say about him either. He was a really good detective and a really good dad, but his relationship with Veronica really frustrated me at times. Like, if y'all would just communicate properly, we would not be in this mess. Why are you both hiding things from each other and keeping secrets and then like getting mad that the other person is snooping around to find those secrets? You guys are both detectives. Of course you're going to be snooping around in each other's business. Of course you would be. And the miscommunication, it just got tired after 3 seasons. Keith also had a terrible taste in women. Like, just let this man be happy. Oh my God. I liked him in the relationship I liked him with the therapist, and I did also like him with Wallace's mom, but then they ruined both those relationships like 3 episodes later, only to throw him into a relationship with a married woman. Like, are y'all stupid? After his history, you're gonna put him into a relationship with a married woman when you had so many other good relationship options? Yikes. Yikes. I did not like that at all, that they did that. Anyway, I know I didn't include Veronica in this whole rant, but that's mainly because I genuinely didn't have that much to say. Like, I liked her as a character, obviously. She's the main character. I just didn't have anything to say. I like her. She's great. She's the main character. I would not be watching a show if the main character was completely insufferable. Most of the choices about writing and stuff had to do with like the background characters and the side characters that then were in relation to Veronica, if that makes sense. So then it was like this intertwining web with like Veronica at the center. I hope that makes sense. But that's why I really don't have that much to say about her. Decent character. One thing I did like about Veronica is that I felt like her character writing was much more consistent than a lot of the other characters. And I also can't complain about like forgotten storylines or things like that because I feel like they did a decent job wrapping up her storylines. So that's why I just don't really have a whole lot to say. Yeah, I think that's it. I had planned on scripting out like what I thought of each of the seasons versus the movie versus season 4, but I feel like this video is also already going to be long enough. And at this point, since I hadn't actually scripted them out, I don't remember what I was going to say at this point, genuinely. So sorry about that. I remember that seasons 1 through 3, I did really enjoy, but at the same time, I think they had a lot more issues. And I hated that season 3 ended on a cliffhanger. But then come the movie, things were just very disconnected from the TV show. Between filming, character writing, like everything was just very disconnected. But then I was also halfway okay with it. And then season 4 just went off the rails. And again, was very disconnected to the original show. It found its footing. Like, I liked it for the most part. And then they just went off the rails by killing off a fan favorite. When it was rebooted, like 10 years after the first show originally aired. And that was because fans continued to have an interest in the show. That's the only reason it got rebooted. And then you go and basically spit in your fans' face. That's kind of how it felt. So that's all I really have to say about that. I'm gonna try to stop going in circles about it because obviously you can tell I'm mad, I can tell I'm mad. A lot of other people are also mad. We don't need to keep going with it. So, sorry if I've already gone too long about it. If you have seen Veronica Mars and you have any thoughts and opinions that you'd like to share, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I would love to chat with you guys if you have any opinions that you'd like to share. If you have any movies or TV shows that you'd like me to check out and talk about, also leave those in the comments down below. I will add them to my absurdly long list and maybe I'll get to them eventually, hopefully. If you liked my little rant here about Veronica Mars, please feel free to give this video a like. I would really, really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out any of my other videos that I've posted so far and subscribe if you would like to join me on this little journey talking about TV shows and would like to see my channel develop over time. That'd be great. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.